I'm Ed Adams, and you're listening to the AAFCA Podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the AAFCA Podcast. And in this episode, we venture into the lifestyles of the rich and famous. Well, sort of, with Ikem Chukumerije. And I'll fill you in with all the details after the break. The AAFCA Podcast is sponsored by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment. All right, I'm probably dating myself a bit, but I remember every week watching Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous with Robin Leach. Now, that show ran from 1984 to 1995. And who can forget MTV's foray into lifestyle entertainment with MTV Cribs in 2000? Now, since then, there's been a ton of reality shows featured around one specific topic, real estate. Now, from HGTV to Bravo, networks have turned an essential staple to a mainstay entertainment stream. But regardless of the format, the most pivotal part is the real estate agent. Now, whether the role is finding or listing a $1 million home or seeking some real estate investment property for a client, a good agent can navigate a client through what can be a very daunting process with ease. Now, to get a better sense of how that works in Hollywood, I had the opportunity to speak with top real estate agent Ikem Chukumerije. So about Ikem, Hollywood Reporter lists him as one of Hollywood's top real estate agents. And scrolling through his Instagram page, it's a who's who of celebrities and athletes. Now, he's also the founder and CEO of Sports Relocation, a boutique agency that specializes in sports and entertainment relocation services. Now, I had a chance to speak with Ikem via Zoom to discuss his career, some of the ups and downs of real estate, and his sports relocation company. Ikem, welcome to the AAFCA Podcast.
Thank you, man. Pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
So I have to start this conversation with something. As I was scrolling through your Instagrams, there was like something that kept coming up over and over and over again. So before we get started, jollof rice. So I had look, I like me some good old jollof rice, but I wanted to know what your thoughts are about the fact that Gambia won this year's West African Food Festival for jollof rice.
Listen, man, 100% Nigerian, regardless of who's winning, whatever contest. I know what the best jollof rice is and where it comes from, and there's no debating that, man. So kudos to them, but I think Nigeria will always, in my heart, be number one for the source of the true and best jollof rice.
Oh, snap. The true and best. All right. That's what I wanted to know. Thanks, man. So now, one of the things I wanted to know, just a little bit of background, is how'd you get into real estate? From what I read, like you're the son of educators. So how did you decide to go into real estate?
Man, it was my parents. It's definitely driven by them. As you mentioned, they are both educators. I did the whole schooling thing, got my undergraduate degree from California, also my MBA, California as well. So I myself very well educated. I understand especially being of Nigerian descent and the tradition. I'm not sure how much you know about it, but it's something that's very important in this culture, and in most, I feel like most cultures. But they were the driving source. My dad told me to get into doing notaries. That's kind of how it started, and from there I was a loan officer, and for several years, and really got into then the residential and commercial side of brokering. So for the past almost 2 decades now, I've been a residential and commercial real estate broker, and almost was it $250 million in sales so far. All right, so it's been a journey. Again, I've seen a lot, the downturn of the market and the rise of the market as well. So it's a lot to it as far as that journey goes, but it really started with my parents.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So speaking of that, so the Hollywood Reporter actually says that you like rates you as one of the top real estate agents in Hollywood. And, I know nothing about Hollywood nor real estate, but, we see a lot of these reality shows that kind of focus on real estate, specifically in California and in Hollywood and in Los Angeles. And from what it looks like, one, the market is very, very competitive. So what I'd like to know from you, like talk to me about what does it take to be successful in an industry, specifically in that town?
Wow, man, it's a number of things. Relationships obviously help, right? So that's I would say probably number one. I think you also need to know the business inside and out. This is not a business where you can simply get your license and all of a sudden you're able to, help people purchase some of the really the biggest asset, biggest expense of their lives, right? So relationships, education, you sprinkle a little bit of luck in there. It's a number of things, but I think those will be the core, from my experience at least, to really get you there.
Okay.
There's definitely not it's not one single answer, right? It's so much involved into really scaling your business and understanding the dynamics of the business. Again, mine was a little different. I'm licensed in 8 states. And when I started, it was really to assist, those in the entertainment and sports industry relocate nationwide.
Mhm.
So getting into real estate and my niche was a little different, I feel like, than most realtors right now. But I've been able to sort of leverage that opportunity into other facets of the real estate business.
Oh, okay. So, question about that, and I know you may not want to go into details, and you don't have to, but I'm I would imagine there's when you're meeting someone, whether it's a celebrity or an athlete who need these very specific real estate needs, they usually start with a particular questions. Like, what are some of the common questions they ask you before they kind of get started into this real estate space?
Um, I mean, really, it's understanding their purchasing power, right? Some people may not know or understand how much they can qualify, especially if they're getting a loan. Um, yes, I work with, high net worth individuals and celebrities, but I also work with others that may not have as much. So I treat everyone honestly the same in terms of getting themselves prepared mentally to purchase. But I would say that it's really understanding their purchasing power, how much they can qualify, how much do they need to put down, what their credit scores need to be. All of this impacts your monthly payment and your interest rate and things like that.
Okay. And one of the things reading on your website, you have a lot of testimonials, and one of the things that's really kind of cool is the fact that you go above and beyond. Like they call you family. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about how you build and forge relationships, and what are some of the lessons that you've learned from being the type of real estate agent that you are, for as long as you've been in this game?
Yeah, in terms of forging these relationships, um, I honestly do treat them as family. Right, like I would never put a client in a situation that I wouldn't put my sister, for example, or my brother, or my parents. So it does really, for me, is very important for me to really make sure that the client understands that. Um, I'm not a pushy salesperson, right? That's if you ask all of my clients, they will tell you that. I let them make the final decision. I am here to guide. I am here to, provide knowledge, and really the experience, right, to help them through this process because it's not an easy process. I know it looks easy on TV, but it's really at sometimes can be very very daunting, right? And I think being there, um, in that version of look, this guy is going to support me and ensure that I am not getting into a situation that I'm going to regret later. I feel like that's it's very important and something I think I hope that they appreciate.
Awesome. Awesome. So you did mention that you're licensed in 8 states for the type of work that you do. But I would also imagine there's a lot of challenges that people don't understand that you face when you're managing properties and your clients' needs from across state borders, or even in other countries for that matter. Um, can you kind of talk about what some of those challenges are for a little bit, just from my understanding?
I mean, look, a quarter of my day is allocated to really to helping clients that let's just fires, right? Like I have to deal with fires literally every day, and it could be as simple as hey, my stove stopped working, right? Or my garage remote isn't working anymore, or there's a leak in the basement. Like there's owning a home. There's so many things can happen, especially if I'm managing that across state lines. I've been able to, especially over this last 2 decades now, build great relationships with vendors and partners all over, really, to be able to be an extension of my hands and my voice when it comes to some of those inquiries or concerns. But every day, obviously, that it's I'm on the phone with clients for various reasons. It could be it's not always bad, but it is a portion of my day that is devoted to really ensuring that they're okay, that I answer their questions, and there's no concerns.
Okay. Well, to that, I mean, so it sounds like even after the sale, the relationship is pretty long. It's a long-term thing, like you're saying, it's
Yeah,
friendship.
man. You know
Okay.
what? It's funny because a lot of agents, once the sale is done, they're done, right? And I think for me, I pride myself in the relationships and making sure that my clients are happy. Like that's for me, that's the ultimate thing. And a lot of people will say, "Why are you doing that? Like you're not getting paid. It's your time." I mean, that is all true. But at the same time, naturally, I want to help people, right? Naturally, I'm not going to just leave you in the dust and let you fend for yourself. So, part of the reason why you hired me to help was for this to be able to utilize my resources, utilize my experience to be able to help you throughout your whole journey, right? I don't care if you're there for 10 years. Guess what? We have a 10-year plus relationship that deals with your home plus more. All right. So that's my approach to it. And it's worked.
Okay. So I was on your website, you had this video behind the gates, and I'm looking at this beautiful home that it was spectacular, like real talk.
Mm.
But it had a lot of extras. And what I was curious about was when people approach you with wanting to buy a property or looking for something, um, how common is it for you to have to negotiate to either add or remove or include something into a property for the sale for this client?
I mean, the video that you're referencing, that's a $10+ million house, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would hope it does have all the bells and whistles and the extras. Um, So I think it really just depends on the size, right, of the home and the stature and just kind of what you're getting into, whether it's a 2 bedroom condo to that, 8 bedroom mansion, in the hills. So I think it's very, I guess, subjective in that sense.
Okay. Okay. So one of the things I saw as well is that you have international clientele, and we just kind of talked about your relationships and how you manage your relationships. But I would imagine, in that space, it's a very different skill set. And I was just kind of curious about that. Can you talk to me about what it is to just to have international clientele to come into these kind of US markets and what that relationship looks like? Because I just imagine it would be completely different what you would do domestically.
It's not, to be honest with you. It's
Yeah.
it's other than the obviously the time zone and maybe just not necessarily the language barrier, just but the process in which things are handled here in the States. Um, the that barrier is very it's not big, right? Like I feel like they are easily able to adapt. Um, the real estate I feel like is a general language or universal language, and very easy to sort of understand. Someone needs to buy a home or a place to live. That's my job, right? I go out
Hmm.
there and find it by any means. So I wouldn't say it's troublesome or more difficult. It's still the same process of going out there. And again, I don't know if it's just because I've been doing it so long. All right. Maybe when I would have just started, I'm sure a lot more of these challenges would be, tougher or more difficult to manage.
Hmm.
But at this point, my system is very well in place. Thankfully, I have processes that really help me keep me aligned, keep my team aligned as well, and it's worked out.
Awesome. Awesome. So the flip side of that, right? Because if I read that correctly, you also have properties in other countries, right? Or did I read that correctly?
Properties and my personal investments.
Yeah.
No, no, I do. I am an investor. I do have properties in Las Vegas.
Okay.
The rest are here in California.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Thanks for clarifying that. But the other thing I thought about, again, looking at that video, is in this space, especially with the relationships that you have with people, it's not uncommon in Hollywood for people to scout houses for movie and television projects. I was curious about your space. In your space, have you ever had to deal with the house that was being scouted or for a location, or what is your experience with you and your team being in that space, if at all?
Um, Honestly, I haven't really gotten too much into that space, right? Because
Hmm.
my primary business is brokering sales. We do leases sometimes, so that may come up once in a blue moon. But in terms of specific to like scouting, very rarely. In terms for at least for my side of the business,
For just a sake of general knowledge for the conversation,
hmm
how common is it for real estate agents to actually be in that space?
it's specialized,
Yeah.
right? So if you're doing it like you have a database of inventory of locations where someone comes directly to you and say, hey, this is what we're looking for, and you already have a database to work with, right? So it's very specialized, just like the sports entertainment niche, but that's even more specialized because you're dealing with different scouts, right, and different locations. So
Hmm.
it's a little bit it's a lot to it. Nothing that I would necessarily get into. I feel like just because of I would say more or less the time. It's a lot of time commitment, which is very limited for me at least right now.
Okay. All right. So now talk to me about your boutique agency. I was reading about sports relocation and um I from what you're saying about your relationships, I would imagine that it's definitely more involved than just showing properties.
Yes. So sportsrelocation.com, that was born, I'll say 2009. And I really used that more or less as a marketing tool. And it was a sort of a division of my real estate company.
Hmm.
Um, with sports relocation, let's just say, for example, you have a player that is traded from Miami Heat to Los Angeles Lakers. They would give us a call. We would assist with their current location. So, for example, if they currently own that property, we would help them if they have plans on selling it. We would help them with that whole process. If there was a lease, we would help them get out of the lease. We would manage the actual relocation process, the complete relocation process from point A to point B. Uh, Manages the movers, the identifying schools in the locations, moving their vehicles. I mean, we really get into the nuts and bolts of it.
Oh,
It's
wow.
customized right to the client's needs, so it's not a one size fits all by any means. But that's really, and it wasn't really to make money, right? It assisted with the relationship building. As I mentioned, it was more or less as a marketing tool to really um, uh, help them help us, right? We were able to build a lot of relationships through that. We passed through the cost again, so it wasn't a money grab or an opportunity or even a business in that sense, right? It was
Hmm.
more again marketing. Like we would use that as a marketing tool to really help us get more into the sports and entertainment real estate side, and it's helped.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, I it's fascinating to think about, right? Because especially if you're into sports and you watch, especially nowadays, trades happen during the season. They happen constantly, and so the needs of an athlete um, changes very frequently. Um,
yeah.
with that, if you don't, I mean, can you talk about? I know you want to tell me how many clients you have and all that stuff, but that's secret. But I would imagine that a part of that long-term relationship, it's not just moving from one place to the other. Sometimes you have people who are more stable and they want like investment properties and things like that. Is that also part of this conversation, or is that something different?
Yeah, absolutely. Historically, the conversation around purchasing investment properties have been, especially with some of the athletes, I guess, more towards the end of their career, right?
Mm-hmm.
They understand that the business, the career side, or the basketball side, or the football side is going to be coming to an end pretty soon, and they're looking at ways of continuing to grow their money and investments. So real estate obviously is one of the key ways, in my opinion, to grow your wealth, right? And this is just historically. This is nothing that I'm making up. There's countless of ways, but for me, real estate is a way that I can show other people how to grow their money, whether it's through investment properties, appreciation, syndication. There's short term, rentals. That there's so many ways of even within just real estate that you can make money. Um, but being conservative, I always recommend, maybe a 4 to 12 unit building, not in LA, right? Not in Miami, not in New York, right? So we have a team that can really identify some of these some of these plays that may make sense. Not all. We'll go through 200, 300 deals, man, to find one that is okay. Right. We're really just not in that market, especially right now, to make 10, 20, 30% on your money. It doesn't exist, or at least legally. So, but no, the investments are definitely real estate investments are definitely an option for them.
Mm-hmm.
And for some, they want to hold off and wait. Others are really curious and they want to get in immediately. All right.
Mm.
So again, we're just here to do, assist with the research and process.
Okay. Okay. So to piggyback on that, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying now is that's more like residential, but what about like business space? I might think about like Nipsey, right? And how he bought a shopping plaza. Like,
Mhm.
is that something to consider as well? Or is that something that you advise any of your clients, or you think people think there's some real investment in that?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a solution, there's something out there that you want to put out um, via commercial real estate, that's definitely an option as well. I have several clients that have purchased and or leased, commercial space for business purposes, and it's worked out, right? Commercial is a totally different beast than residential, right? So they're looking at more financials for the business, and they want to make sure that this is something that's going to work out for you. You're signing longer term leases for a lot of them,
Mm-hmm.
but as long as the business plan is there and everything makes sense, it normally goes without a hitch. But no, that is an option as well. Several clients, especially in the sports and entertainment, that get into commercial real estate and investing as well.
Oh, awesome. Okay, good. Good to know. So let's shift now a little bit for people who are listening who may be starting in the industry, thinking about getting into the industry. One of the big stories that you see in real estate today is the California exodus, right? You kind of see these stories pop up over and over again, saying that it's a trend amongst younger people who moving out of California to other states. And it's definitely affecting the market, and possibly I don't know if it's affecting your business or not, but do you see this as either a problem or do you see it as an opportunity?
I don't see it as a problem. Like if they're leaving, you're leaving for a reason, and hopefully there's a better sort of opportunity wherever you're going. Um, Listen, California and Los Angeles in general is expensive. It's an expensive place to live and work. Like you really have to have everything aligned and in order to make it. Unfortunately, otherwise, it's a struggle. So I hear the stories, you hear the stories. Um, so I understand the reason why a lot of people, even if it's temporary, just take a break, right, and go elsewhere just to kind of get settled in before coming back. Uh, Obviously, if you are in the entertainment space, LA is one of the biggest markets, right? So a lot of them tend to want to be around here because of work purposes, or or to just be in that network of people that are in their industry. So, but yeah, I don't think it's impacting my business that much. Again, I'm able to help anyone right across the state. So as long as they have a need, I'm able to service that. But what you're saying is a valid sort of, it's happening, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
no doubt, and I think it is mostly financial related.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Last two questions. For a new person coming into the real estate game, maybe not LA. What is a piece of advice that you would offer them?
Um, Piece of advice, I would say, do not be intimidated by the person next door. Meaning, don't feel like you have to rush, right, to get settled. You got to take your time and really understand. what you're trying to get into. Research as much as possible. There's countless information out there for you to really review and read, and spend that time to understand what you're getting into before diving right in. I am a big proponent of real estate and getting in. I think just get started. Once you pass okay, I'm ready. All right, let's get started. Could be something small, right? The big thing is just get started. Just get started.
About that, do you feel that people tend to it sounds like people may get a little too inundated, overwhelmed, possibly, you feel?
So yeah, it's a lot, but I think that's the benefit of, asking friends that have already done it, maybe like, hey, how did you get through this? Who did you use, right? What are your resources that assisted you in getting to where you are? I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? Asking for advice and, assistance in that manner, because it is a lot and you're not expected to know everything. But you are expected to at least open your mouth and ask, like, hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. Okay. And then for people who are considering real estate, what's some for a first time buyer, or what would be some advice? I mean, you mentioned earlier about about finances and stuff, but like for someone who's looking for a real estate agent, what would you tell them to look for? What are some of the traits or neat things they should be looking for?
I think definitely someone that's experienced, right?
Mm.
Someone that has gone through the process of helping other clients. I think it's great to ask questions, as I mentioned, your fellow peers, like, did they have a pleasant experience purchasing? And how was that experience, right? And who did you reach out to? I think that's probably key. And once you get into it, really understanding the process, it is daunting, man. I can't say that enough. So that's why it's so important to really have a sit down and, like, there's no stupid questions. Like, really ask those questions. Like, hey, what's step number one? What's step number two? What's step number three? Like, there's no problems with that. But the main thing is, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there like, it sounds to me like I appreciate you saying that, because I think that a lot of times, like, people tend to, especially with new ventures, they tend to kind of jump in and be green but not ask questions. But the flip side of that is flags, right? Like, what are some of the flags that you would tell someone who's trying to find a real estate agent? What are some of the flags they should be looking out for?
For trying to find an agent, flags, like I said, just like lack of experience. Like, this is someone that's helping you purchase one of the biggest assets in your life, like lifetime. Like, I think you want to go with someone who understands the process from A to Z, because it will cost you a lot if you don't. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's just the lack of experience. Like, you want to go with someone who knows what they're doing. Simply.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate, you sharing your knowledge and your experience and stuff. I really wish I could dive into some of these houses and these celebrities and athletes, but we're respectful. We're respectful,
Appreciate
it. But listen, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate what you do. I'm following you on Instagram now, so we'll see what other food things we'll talk about later. I may comment on a couple of things, but
let's do it. Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate
all right. That was Ikem Chukumerije discussing all things real estate. Now, if you'd like to know more about him and his company, check out his website at milliondollarliving.com. And that's our show. Thanks again to Ikem for being a part of this episode. Now, did you know that AAFCA also supports the works and contributions in theater? Well, we do, and as part of the AAFCA Goes to Broadway series. You can find out more about this program and all the other events and programs the organization provides by checking out the AAFCA website at aafca.com or following us on Instagram. So until next time, keep your head up.